Welcome to our lap quilting show, coming to you from Offenburg, Germany, and the Gerhard Humpert sewing machine shop. They have set many records here, teaching over 1,500 courses and making just about that many quilts. Two of their specialties are attic windows and application quilts. Now, what are application quilts? I bet the owners know. Let's go inside and meet them.
Could you imagine a more clever object? Warms the body, ignites the mind. A child sleeps under mother's creation, together forever. The art of the heart and design of the mind puts you to bed one day at a time. The art of the heart and design of the mind.
Guten Morgen.
Good morning. Good morning.
It is an honor for us to be here in Offenburg and to meet Waltraud and Gerhard Humpert and their daughter Tanja, who will be our interpreter today. What a business you have put together here. Give us a little history about it and how this all started.
Okay. Also ein kleiner geschichtlicher Überblick über die Firma, wie das alles entstanden ist und so weiter.
Ja, also mein Vater hat vor 30 Jahren, 35 Jahren das Geschäft gegründet.
He says his father, so my grandfather, he founded this firm 30 years ago. And 12 years ago, they both took the business over.
Gerhard, tell us about your operation here.
So first of all, they sell sewing machines, and then they also do courses.
So you have found that patchwork and selling fabric. Now, what sort of fabric do you do here?
Nur aus Amerika.
Only American.
Only American. Well, we'll use your sewing machines and you can use our fabric. How does that go? Is that a fair trade?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Part of your history is tied up in the Offenburg quilt. Tell us about that.
Yeah. There in 1848, there was a great revolution. We have in Germany, we have also little states like in the USA, and the state we live here is Baden-Württemberg. There was two separate states, Baden and Württemberg, and now it's together. In 1848, the Baden people wanted to be free, and there was a great revolution. And the colors of this revolution were black, yellow, and red. In 1998, there was a great celebration about this revolution, and my father did this quilt for this celebration, this freedom quilt. It's called Freedom Quilt.
Well, that's just one of many of his patchwork quilts, and we look forward now to seeing more of your quilts. Gerhard, this is wonderful to have a patchwork gentleman in Germany. Gerhard, what a fine opportunity to see some of your work. It would take an hour special to show all of your quilts, but we're going to start with your earlier period in this pineapple quilt.
When he started with patchwork, there were no yellow textiles, and he was very sad. And then 1 year later, Ginie had a big palette of yellow textiles, and he was very happy to have yellow textiles now.
And that has been all planned on paper in order to get, so you'd know where to place your colors?
Und auf dem Papier oder?
Ja, das
yes,
habe ich dann gezeichnet und habe den Farbverlauf habe ich dann geplant, so dass es.
He planned it on paper.
And then from there, another one of your quilts is a sunflower. Tell us about this.
Was war mit der Sonnenblume?
Ja, ich habe da ein Bild gesehen, das hat mir sehr gut gefallen und dann habe ich gedacht, ich könnte
He
das
saw
eigentlich
a little
groß
picture
auf,
of a sunflower and he
übertragen
loved
und
this
dass
picture
ich dabei
and he thought, I have to do a quilt with a sunflower.
Now, understand, you have told me that your father, if it's raining on a Sunday, he will be at the sewing machine piecing. What if it's not raining? What is he doing?
He likes bicycling and he likes walking.
Well, what else would you do on a...
kommen immer wieder neue Ideen.
He says when he goes on bike or when he walks, he has new ideas for new quilts.
Yes, that all come. The juices seem to flow then,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And now we're lucky enough to see your latest project. This is your most recent, and now you're into silk. Understand? Is this silk?
Seidenquilt.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
Ich habe eine Freundin, die arbeitet in einer Firma.
He says he has a neighbor, a friendly neighbor. She works in a firm who imports pillows from China. She brought 300 pillows to him, and he cut them and used it again for this quilt.
Well, it is wonderful. It is truly, it has such a shimmering look to it.
Yeah.
Shimmering look to it. And now we're going to have a chance to see more of your store, including some patchwork classes in the lower level. So,
This one? Yeah, here, this is
ah, yes. Ah,
Here it is.
how nice. How nice. How interesting to go around the table exploring each student's work in this 3-week class. Certainly an advanced class with medallion-type designs.
It will be the same star as this one you see over there.
Ah, it will be beautiful. I could not get over one student breaking all the rules. Why, she had a long needle, no thimble, even quilting through paper, quilting up on a table with just a few safety pins for basting. I see no thimble. And guess what? It works. Your needle. Long needle. Oh, long needle.
Ja, wenn es dann etwas dicker ist, ne, dann schwerer, wenn
Ah,
es mit
yes,
kurzen Nadeln.
yes, because of the thick batting.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes. So you have 2 layers of batting. Before we left the shop, Gerhard bragged on just a few more quilts, mostly application quilts, with themes from Block of the Month to biblical to Disney. Just more proof of the expert handicraft in the German field of quilt making. Throughout our visit, we had many laughs as we struggled with the language. Welcome back to the Quilt Built Studio. The quilter's alphabet covers M and N today. Let's start with M for marking, the process of transferring designs onto the quilt top in order to have a line to follow when quilting. So many options today. I've always favored the water-soluble pens. They come regular, fine, and even very fine. Just remember that when you have done your marking, to use that wet sponge, and after your quilting is done, use that wet sponge to get rid of any marking. I also use a light box, which is nice for some of the darker colors or the busy prints, and that helps in doing the transferring. There are pencils in gray, blue, yellow, and white, and this is a nice kit opportunity with your pencils, a pencil sharpener, and even a fabric eraser. Chalk roller is another favorite of mine. I actually like to hear it roll, and what's nice about this is it comes off as you're quilting. Masking tape, great for those straight lines. I store it in a plastic bag. It keeps threads from collecting. There's something new in the quilt world. It's called stick and stitch. What a nice idea to have designs that are already pre-cut. You simply take off the backing, and then you can position this any way you want, and it's flexible. As you're quilting, it gives. It's not as stiff as contact paper. When you've used it several times, you can make new ones, and you can also just use this template to draw around also. Great idea. M is for Masterpiece Quilt, an exceptionally fine quilt made to display the best of quilting, piecework, or applique. A quilt executed with the best of fabric, more difficult curves, tiny piecework, or intricate applique, and quilted in a good light with total concentration. We're not doing one on this series, but I wish every one of you in your lifetime will make a masterpiece quilt. M for Meandering, a quilting term referring to squiggly, puzzle-like lines created either by hand or the machine, seen most often in stipple areas of a quilt. I'm getting ready to do the background of these little coffee pots, and quite often stippling and meandering forms just that great background. It's a filler, and it was originally used when cotton batting was prevalent because it kept the cotton batting stabilized and kept it from separating. When I machine quilt, of course, I pull up that bobbin thread, and then I would just stitch in place to lock that, and then I start that puzzle-like design. My feed dogs are dropped. I've got a white thread in my bobbin because my backing is white, and a white thread on top. It always reminds me of making a puzzle, and sometimes you can just touch and then come out a little fur from that and come around. There's no pattern. On some of our machines today, they've actually put a stippling pattern in, and that gets you started. You need to try and meander. It's a part of quilt making today. M is for medallion quilt, a quilt top focused around a central square, diamond, or motif with radiating borders or designs expanding outward, such as this antique block that can just be added on to, or a small baby quilt. We also taught on one of the series the antique medallion quilt. M is for mitering, a 45-degree diagonal seam at the corner of a block or border which forms a right angle when it's connected. Two little tips. You cannot miter perfectly unless your adjacent borders are the same width, and it's also important that you have created a 90-degree angle at the corners. These are free because you've stitched up to the 1/4 inch and you've stopped and back stitched. And then you simply put these together, knowing that the extensions are the same length, and then with a pencil from that back stitching to that right angle, you draw a line. That is the line that you stitch on. Once that's stitched, you cut this off, giving yourself the 1/4 inch extension for your seam allowance, and you've got a perfect mitered border. N is for notions, paraphernalia that is a necessity in quilt making, such as threads, needles, scissors, and on and on. Well, it's almost gotten out of hand. I think as we are taping this show, there's probably someone out there inventing a new gizmo that we cannot live without. It starts with, of course, our needles, our thread, and our needles need to be stored. What a great pin cushion, complete with its own little emery end, and these really work. That emery is just corundum, that is for grinding and for polishing, and you just put your needle back and forth through that. Good idea here is to use your indelible pen and mark these sections so you can organize your needles. Rotary cutters in all sizes, the mats to go with them. How about your own traveling color wheel when you go to select fabric? Our scissors with that lip at the end, markers for measuring the 1/4 inch. I like these new handles that I can just, with a suction cup, hold on to my long rulers. The pin cushions, the seam rippers, that's a necessity. Isn't this classy? A wooden stand for my rulers. I really like this. Now, 120 inches in a tape measure, while we can't live without that, you can even carry it around your neck. Our feature block of the show is entitled For Ginie in Germany. It has to do with the next guest on our show. I was so intrigued by her templates. They're metal, which allows you to cut right along the edge. It has an opening to mark the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I particularly liked her pattern based on a quadrilateral figure, knowing that when you sew 3 of these together, it forms that equilateral triangle. So that's what I put together, and of course we know by now how to stitch that. Whenever you have seams coming together, such as this in the center, we only sew up to the 1/4 inch seam allowance to give those free floating seams. So you stop and back stitch. The sides are simply sewn all together, the 3 pieces sewn to this, and then you've got a little equilateral triangle right down here that needs to be stitched in one long line. Now, Gerhard introduced us to the quilt activity in Germany, but our real liaison was an acquaintance made years ago in the States. Finally, I get to catch up with Ginie Curtze on her own ground at a craft fair. Why, I almost thought I was in North Carolina from just gazing at the pottery and the creative wares for sale. But what would a craft show be without quilts? It is a pleasure to introduce Ginie Curtze from Constance, Germany. Ginie, our quilt history goes back a long way. Would you believe that Ginie translated every word of my original lap quilting series for distribution here in Germany? And to think that my very own heritage goes back to a northern town in Germany, Mecklenburg. I guess you'd say that is full circle. Give us an update, Ginie. What has happened to you since those original translations that you did?
Oh, first thing, they are in many, many schools in Germany.
The tapes are?
Yeah, the students are, I gave it to the school that they know what traditional quilting means. And I guess you're very famous because of that. Yeah, and we made a lot of trips in there to original places for quilting in the United States. You see one of these quilts is telling the whole story about a trip.
So you take groups of German ladies to America?
Oh yeah, from Germany, from Switzerland, from Austria, and 40, 50 girls are coming usually with me.
After those trips, Ginie, what did it lead to?
The women want to make quilts like they saw it in the United States, in all these gorgeous exhibitions. So I decided to make templates. That's easier for them, like that. Yeah.
Yes.
You see, and I made little cards that it's very easy for them to do, how to sew it, how to put it together, and make different designs. You see, you can cut it here with a little roll,
so you've
how do you
got,
say?
And this you can cut on the fabric with a rotary cutter.
And here you mark your seam, so nobody can make a mistake. It's very easy, even for young 14, 16-year-old students.
And then after that, what happened?
I had to write a book, how to use all the templates. You see, it's about a lot of different patterns. And I show how to do it and how to do different designs.
And now understand this has become a family affair by your son helping you with this too.
Yeah, my son made the design, and all the final work, what you have to do to publish it by your own.
And there's some stories in here about your trips. Yes.
About each pattern, I have a story where I found it and what's behind the whole pattern, what it means.
I think you're really a quilt ambassador, a hard worker in Germany to spread the word.
Yeah.
And we congratulate you and keep making these wonderful, bright, happy quilts.
I want to thank you because of you. I do all
well,
that.
we're doing this together. This is a teamwork, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
M is for mountains. A 60-degree diamond creates that wide angle that I see every day in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Now these diamonds have a wider point than our portulaca. Do you remember our portulaca? That is based on our traditional 45-degree diamond. Every time my grandchildren come to visit, they always say, well, where are the blocks, Gram? And this has turned out to be their favorite toy. How nice to relate this hexagon to our grandmother's flower garden quilt. And of course, I challenge them to find out how they can put it back together. And they discover that 3 60-degree diamonds make up that hexagon, or 2 red figures, or even the little equilateral triangle. So it's a good beginning lesson in patchwork. Now, do you remember in school when you were a little bit bored and you would sit around making these stars, and they were so much fun to make? Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit on this design and tell you that I have learned to put these stars into what I call strip picture piecing, where I use the gridded freezer paper and actually make rows or strips that are coated and are then stitched together. And I've adapted those to a folk American flag and to even a bomber's jacket with stars of all angles. We kind of call these stars with personality. But I'd always wanted to put these into a big quilt. Well, one time I received a wonderful card that featured that idea. And all of a sudden, it allowed me to go to that 60-degree diamond. Look how I featured that in the large quilt that I call Purple Mountain Majesty, with all those floating stars, large stars and small stars, or Gwen Albert's wonderful quilt over our mantel that is based on 9-inch diamonds, or my small wall hanging that is based on 6-inch diamonds. Now, how about a drafting lesson today? I know you can do it. All you need is some gridded freezer paper, your rulers that have your 30-degree angle and your 60-degree angle. And follow me how we find that 30-degree and line it up with the crosswise lines of your grid. And once that is lined up, you draw the 12 inches and mark that. Now, swing that ruler around and note that also your 60-degree is lining up vertically, and get that 30-degree all lined up again. It doesn't need to be on the line, it needs to be even parallel with it. And so then you're drawing down 12 inches again. Continue around, finding that 12 inches, get your 30-degree. Is it lined up? And of course, when you come back around, what should happen? This should meet exactly, which it does, and get your 30-degree marked again. Once that has been done, and I'm going to show you how I've done it with the 3 sizes. Here is your 6-inch, your 12-inch, and here is your 9-inch. Once those have been designed, then you're going to put those into equal rows. And to do that, you're going to mark every 4 inches and 8, and do it on the opposite side. Do your 4 and your 8 and connect those lines. Once those are connected on all 3, I'm connecting it there, and then I'm connecting it here. You can see what happens. You've got those all connected. Now becomes your fun part. You're going to make that star. And to do that, I start with one. I'm going to do this in ink, and I think you can see it a little bit better here on the screen. I think Will can really get this. You come down like this on that first line, and then you come all the way across here, which is your second line. That's 2. Now 3 goes all the way over to here. There's 3. And 4 is going to do this little fun thing. It's going to cross over where your second line hit this line. So you've got a little crossover thing here. You're just going to come and cross right over, and then your last line comes here and intersects. Whoops, I almost did it wrong. Swing it around and come all the way up to here. Do you see how it's coming up to here? And there's your star. And I sometimes kind of shade those in so I can see the point. Do you see how that comes like this, and like this, and like this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got my 5 points. They're stars that are askew. It's not the Texas star. They're all at strange angles. And we're going to see on our next show how to properly code those angles. You need to code them, and how to piece them and put them together. And then we'll do our stars with personality in a 60-degree diamond. In Germany, after our shop tour, a surprise awaited us behind the building. We were just overwhelmed to see the world's largest quilt. Well, at least Germany's largest quilt. Just inspect the color and the grand array of stars. Congratulations to the many hands that made this possible, and a big thank you to Gerhard, his sister Tanja, and his wonderful staff.
Closed captioning made possible by OmniGrid, manufacturer of the original patented black and yellow rulers and green cutting mats, and Collins, well known for notions and tools for quilt makers. For more information about patterns and designs shown on this series, Visit Georgia at www.georgiabonesteel.com. Lap quilting with Georgia Bonesteel is made possible in part by grants from Bernina, makers of sewing machines manufactured with the care of traditional Swiss workmanship. Nothing sews like a Bernina. Nothing. By Gamel Quilting Machine Company, offering 4 sizes of long-arm hand-guided machines to quilters worldwide. By Coates & Clark, America's #1 name in sewing, hand knitting, and craft products. By Martingale & Company, home of That Patchwork Place, publisher of America's best-loved craft and hobby books. By Hobbs Bonded Fibers, maker of heirloom premium cotton and wool batting, with a package labeling system to help quilters select the correct batting for specific projects. And by Horn of America, cabinets of the future today.